Well, today we have a very special guest to deal with all the issues concerning the Second Amendment. In fact, he's chairman of the Citizens Committee for the Rights to Keep and Bear Arms. Alan Gottlieb is with us today. He's also the author of about 20 books. He's also the publisher of the gunmag.com and founder of the Second Amendment Foundations. Alan, nice to have you today.
Thank you.
Hey, where are you? Are you up in Seattle or somewhere like that?
Bellevue, Washington, right across the lake from Seattle.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so you're a Pacific Northwester. Good, welcome. Nice to have you with us today. Tell us about the Second Amendment Foundation.
Well, we're the nation's oldest and largest nonprofit educational, research, publishing, and legal defense organization, most known, of course, for our Supreme Court victory in the case McDonald versus Chicago, which knocked out Chicago's handgun ban. And incorporated the Second Amendment through the 14th Amendment to all 50 states. The cities and states can't take your rights away any more than the federal government can.
Good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I want to turn to the city of Chicago, as we have seen some interesting court rulings come out of there in the last week or so, but we also seen the homicides go down. How can you explain that?
Well, when we won our case in 2010, our McDonald versus Chicago that knocked out their gun ban, it allowed people to own handguns in their own home to protect themselves for the first time. Now, Chicago has made it difficult to get those firearms, which I'll talk about in a second, but there's still people now that own firearms in their homes in Chicago for self-protection. And for the first time now, criminals roaming the streets, picking on people's homes, have to recognize that they might be armed, and as a result of that, the deterrent effect, we're seeing a 16% reduction in overall crime in the city of Chicago, where there were 415 homicides in 2013, which was 88 fewer than there were in 2012.
Wow. The numbers are still high, but they're heading in the right direction.
Well, yeah, and of course this past week, when a federal judge ruled that Chicago's ban on the sale of handguns or allowing gun stores within the city was unconstitutional, that's going to help out a whole lot, too. And, of course, that ruling was based upon our McDonald versus Chicago victory, as well as two other legal victories against Chicago. A Rizal case that knocked out their ban on gun ranges. In order to own a gun in your own home, you have to have range training, but Chicago banned gun ranges. And we also won a very big ruling in our Moore versus Madigan suit, which knocked out the ban on permits for concealed carry, so people can now get a permit to carry a firearm for self-protection. All those things now are going to help out in future years, lowering Chicago's crime rate.
Well, Alan, that's a huge victory, isn't it?
Well, it's a string of huge victories. Yeah, we're very, very proud of that. Illinois and Chicago have been one of the states with the most restrictive gun laws in our country, and we've been able to knock a bunch of those out in federal court, all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and we're really proud of that.
Now, is that kind of in a little bit of a holding zone or holding pattern? I mean, the judge has made the ruling, but it hasn't been implemented to see if the city's going to appeal?
Well, with regard to the ban on gun stores, yes, that's correct, and I'm sure the city will appeal. But when they appeal and go to the appeals court level, that's the appeals court that has already ruled out of the McDonald case, the Rizal case, and the Moore case. And so they're going to lose. All they can do is string it out some more. But there's no doubt that eventually there will be gun stores in the city of Chicago. It's amazing a city the size of Chicago, there's not one place where you can buy a firearm.
Wow. Well, that certainly sends a message to the criminals.
Yeah, the problem, of course, is criminals are still going to be criminals if Chicago leaves them on the street, but they're more apt now to probably go to the suburbs, so to speak, and leave Chicago and not prey on the inner city people. There's no doubt that guns saves lives and is a good side to guns, and if you ban them or you ban people's means of getting the firearm, all it does is allow the criminals to continue to break laws and prey on people.
You and I have seen every time the Second Amendment has been attacked, especially if it approaches somewhat of an election year, that the pushback from the citizenry is fairly significant. And do you see that happening in 2014?
I do. In fact, I just wrote a column for newspapers across the country. It talks to the Democrats, basically, that if you want to get guns off the street, you need to take them off the table first. And you got to stop trying to take people's guns away with your legislation. We saw when Bill Clinton passed the so-called assault and ban, we saw a 10-year supply of guns and ammunition sold in 1 year. and then we saw an election that knocked out the Democrats' control of Congress. This year, we're seeing record levels again of firearms and ammunition being sold because of the push against firearms ownership. And we just had recall elections in in Colorado, where 2 state senators were recalled, and the third one resigned rather than being recalled because it would have flipped control from the Democrats to the Republicans in the legislature. And so she resigned so they could just appoint a successor. And then there's a writing on the wall for what we're going to see in the midterm elections here in 2014.
This president seems to be relentless in his pursuit to control guns and ban guns, and he's even now threatening to do some stuff in this year. In some ways, that could be a positive in that there is such a desire for people to own guns that the pushback could be fairly significant.
I think you're correct. I believe there is going to be a very large pushback. It's why a lot of the Democrats now are trying to run away from the issue a bit, and why they've told Michael Bloomberg, mayor of New York City, to stop funding his efforts between now and the election time to try and take people's guns away, because it's going to backfire.
Alan, what's the fundamental issue here? Because most citizens want the Second Amendment to be to stay in place and not to be chipped away, and yet there are quite a few legislators, both at the state level, city level, and even national level, who feel that by getting guns out of people's hands, somehow that's the answer to the question. What's the fundamental issue here?
Well, of course, the fundamental issue is, when you need a firearm to protect yourself or a means to protect yourself, police response time usually isn't good enough to get there to protect you first before you have to protect yourself. And so for most gun owners, of course, we're taking a look at the fact that lots of people are alive today because they had a firearm to protect themselves and their family from criminal attack. On the other side of the equation, there are a lot of people who believe in people control and really want to tell you how you should live your life and what's good or bad. Most of that is led by inner-city Democratic politicians in very safe districts where they can't lose. So for them to scream for more gun control doesn't hurt them at the ballot box. But the Democrats are, in outlying areas, in suburbs, in rural areas, of course, get beaten up and killed over that. And so as a result, now they're starting to realize that maybe they've gone a little too far in the past year.
Do you see any other pending legislations throughout the United States or at state levels that could be pretty threatening?
Yes, I do. Michael Bloomberg, of course, is planning on spending millions and millions of dollars on ballot measures in a number of states in the 2014 election cycle, in states where he thinks he can push gun control on the ballot. I think personally that's going to backfire in most states, but nevertheless, that's what he's been trying to do. So we're very worried about a lot of ballot measures that are extremely costly for the gun rights movement to fight back against.
All right. Well, thank you for your work. How do people communicate with you?
Well, probably the easiest way to see what's going on is to go to the Second Amendment Foundation's website at saf.org, samalphafrank.org, or just put Second Amendment Foundation in your browser, and we'll pop up. And all these legal cases we just talked about are on that website.
All right, great. Thank you, Alan, for your work, and keep up the fight, and keep us informed, will you?
Thank you very much, Perry. Good to be with you.
All right, nice to see you. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.